and limit comments to 3 minutes. We ask that all comments remain respectful and comply with board policy. There will be no dialogue between speakers and the board, and this portion of public comment will be limited to 30 minutes. Does anyone wish to comment? You can step forward, there's microphones on the end. Oh, okay. I do want to follow up to a comment that was made at the last meeting. Mrs. Halfpenny came and expressed concern about lights at the tennis courts, and I'm happy to report that between Walter Moran and John Fink, there will be a solution for next year, and of course with Mr. Simo, but they're working on the funding, et cetera. So there will be a solution for next tennis season, something I think that will benefit multiple entities across, things that happen outside, but I'm excited we were able to get something moving and a solution for that pretty quickly. So now we will move on to presentations. We have a couple of exciting ones this evening. The first one, I would like to invite members of the CCHS Athletic Leadership Council to present on Dragon Day 2026.
So this is the 4th year of our Athletic Leadership Council. We couldn't be more proud of how it's evolved over the years. And this group, as you're going to see shortly, has really taken things to the next level. Just a quick overview of athletic leadership. Essentially, it's a representation of every one of our varsity programs. It's a junior and senior representative made up of every single one of our varsity teams. And they have an opportunity just to learn about different types of leadership and different skills within leadership that help support them and their teams throughout the year. Their culminating event every year is Dragon Day, which is May 17th. And I couldn't be more proud of the way that they have prepared and organized, learned from the past, and tried to just improve this year's event. As Mr. DeBold and I have mentioned in the past, this day is really their project. It's their opportunity to just make it their own. And everything that you're going to learn about is really their space. It's their opportunity. It's their day. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to them.
Hi, my name is Avery Greer. I'm a senior and I play tennis, and I'm also part of the ski team.
Hi, my name is Marissa Barnsby and I'm a senior and I run cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track.
Hello, my name is Justin Tolbert. I'm a senior. I play football and I run indoor track and outdoor track.
My name is Albert Kurienko. I'm also a senior and I run cross country and track.
So I don't know if we have our slide. Oh, there they go. So a little bit about Dragon Day. It's happening on May 17th, 2026, and it's our annual community day centered around community engagement and athletics, and we're really here to highlight the outstanding athletics program that we've created at Cornwall and all the achievements, like Devin over here, and then we're emphasizing the benefits of kids staying active and showing our gratitude for your support in all of this by inviting you to join us at Dragon Day. So first off, we have a 5K at 9:30, and we have something for everyone at this event. So the 5K is open to all ages and all ability levels, so run, walk, whatever works. Then we have a K-8 fun run and team relays for the high schoolers, and we have all medals for that. Last year we had a really great showing with that. And then all the profits from the 5K go towards next year's Dragon Day operations and senior athletic scholarships.
All right, so for the activities group, we'll have all varsity sports hosting different activities related to their sports. So for example, we'll have football doing a obstacle course using different football pads, tackling and throwing things that you can do. Soccer, they have mini games. For softball, hit and cage. Volleyball, mini volleyball game with the net. And then we also have additional games such as Gaga ball and yard games that will be there as well. And we've decided to add a water balloon toss game this year, which will most likely include we'll have a bunch of water balloons, and decide to maybe have a water balloon game, just throw them at each other, or just have some fun.
I'm part of the vendors group, so we work with Cornwall and New Windsor businesses, and we invite them to this day so that they can set up a table or they can like run an activity. I know Sportsplex does a sit-up contest, and they hand out like little string bags with Sportsplex on it. We also have food. We had Ice Mothers come last year, and they're coming back again. Last year they brought a face painter, and then this year we decided to switch it up, so they're bringing a balloon artist instead. And then we have a bunch of other businesses that'll be around, just like ready to talk about what they do.
So I'm representing the funding group, and basically the way we receive funds is by going to local businesses like Village Pizza, for example, and we ask them if they want to like donate for the event, and so they like sponsor us, and we give back by basically advertising their business on like stuff like shirts, bottles, just like apparel, and they'll be on a banner at the event. So this funding goes towards like all the activities we do, like the 5K and any of like the games that we have going on, any expenses. And any extra money raised from this event goes directly to athletics, like new stuff for the weight room, for example. And on Dragon Day, we sell shirts, we host a raffle, we sell raffle tickets, and that was a big thing last year. And a new thing this year is we're hosting a clothing drive, and we're getting 20 cents for each pound of like clothing that we receive at the event.
So as for Dragon Day's lasting legacy, the first thing we start with in this order is fostering leadership skills for our council members, which is us and all of the other 30-ish athletes that work with us on this crew. And then our second part is going from translating these plans. We talk about it for the second semester of the year, but putting it into action, especially day of, is something that really fosters leadership skills for us. And then third, on day of, we love to engage students and have them realize how important sports are for mental health and just staying active and happy and healthy. And then fourth, we love to build a new tradition, so we're excited, as we're all seniors, we're passing this on to the juniors next year in our group and on to all the kids that go to Dragon Day. So we hope to see you on May 17th. Thank you so much.
I don't know if anyone on the board has questions or comments. Yeah.
So loud. Hello. I'm very excited for this. I already put it in my calendar for my kids to come with me. Will we learn more about the clothing drive? Because that's like really great. I feel like there's a lot of chatter about these around town, and like I know I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna start like putting stuff away specifically for this.
Yes, so we're going to be putting out an advertisement soon, and we do have an Instagram page, which we will let everyone know about after this. But we're going to be putting out an advertisement, and I believe it's called Deposit Your Closet. And so they have certain guidelines and stuff, but you're just basically going to fill up trash bags and then bring it there. And we're going to be doing a lot more of like the publicizing that this month. So do you have anything to say about that, Albert? That's it.
Thank you.
This is so great. It's been so great to see this event grow each year and everybody, as you said, step up. I'm just curious, you mentioned that you're helping the juniors behind you. I think that's such a great part of it, and I would love if you could talk about, you know, how that works and how you're getting that next generation involved.
So all throughout the year, we go through like, they create slideshows that we talk about all year, and we get into like groups, and we always talk about the events, and it's always a mix of juniors and seniors to cultivate kind of a community between the two. And all four of us were in it our junior year, and we loved it, and we thought it built such a community within like the sports world. So it was such a good like way to just like all come together, even if we like play different sports and stuff.
So the presentations she's talking about are all about leadership and like building team culture. So even though we're all on different teams, we all obviously have met each other through all these years. So I think it's more about like building relationships between the grades, just like Avery was saying. So in each group, we do have like the senior mentors, but I know that last year we got a lot of like the resources passed down to us about, okay, this is how we did it last year, this is how you can do it this year, this is how you can make it better. So I feel like passing those on, we're trying to make those frameworks better every year so it's easier for them, and then they can add their like touches to it and different flares each year.
Anyone else? I have a question. So I'm curious, and I'll be curious after the event as well. And I'll just say, Mr. Simo and Mr. DeBold, like, I remember the very first time the group came, and I feel like that passing down or that being able to be a junior and work through it, it's really evident even just in your public speaking. Like, it's very impressive, so great job. I'm curious if you could share with us, what has been your biggest aha or like your leadership lesson, or, you know, what was the biggest surprise you had learned about yourself or about leadership through this?
I'd say one big like aha moment I've had is they showed us a video on these two teams in Texas, about how like the game is never over until it hits triple zeros on the board. And I felt that really applied to me as I play football a lot. And watching that video over and over again, it made me realize like no matter what I do until it's said and done, I gotta keep going. I gotta keep working hard at it. And that's what I feel like I've learned, and many others, like we've all learned, even though we do different sports. Those videos apply, even if it's for football, it applies to all the different sports that we do. No matter, like, if you're running track, you got to keep going until you pass that line, or you're skiing, you got to keep going until you get down that hill. So that's what I felt like my moment for me has been in this moment for the council.
I would like to add, like, from last year, I was also in the funding, and frankly, a lot of things didn't go to plan, but we're taking those, like, realizations into this year, and just trying to adapt. We adapted last year to, like, what kind of went wrong and what we could do about it. And this year, like, we have the lessons learned, and we just are making it better.
I was just gonna add on to that. Mr. Simo, Mr. DeVold were telling us today, but I feel like the planning details are so significant we don't even realize it until day of, because you can prep and prep and prep before, but day of there's always gonna be something that goes a little sideways. So like they say, we have plan A, B, C, D, and E. So we've got that all unlocked now. So it's a lot more smooth than it has been in past years.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank this group that's here today, but also all the kids that are involved as well in the council. I had the pleasure of meeting with some of our representatives last week, and you know, I'm always so impressed with our students and just their level of maturity. I mean, as seniors now, it's amazing that you guys are going to be leaving us, and one of the key things in this planning is that they really do everything that you guys will see there. Like, if you go there on the 17th, you're going to be completely impressed. Everything that's there, it's done by the kids. It's not done by the adults. So even when I met, I was like, do you need help with? Nope, we got it. Okay, and then what about? Nope, we got that too. I'm like, okay, you know, like Mama Bear, like, are you sure you got this? But they have it. So congratulations, you guys. Like, I'm very much looking forward to it, and you continue to impress all of us.
One last closing thing here. This is kind of fortuitous. I had to run around. Picked up my daughter at lacrosse practice, and the sky opened up on me, so I'm a little soaked right now. But you know, one of the things we kind of stress to them is, you know, and they kind of pointed out as the, you know, kind of the lasting legacy, and you're building tradition for the next generation. You know, my daughter here is proof of that. She'll be going to her 4th Dragon Day, you know, this May. But she came from lacrosse practice, and I'm sure at some point during Dragon Day, one of the Dragon Days, she picked up a lacrosse stick, threw the ball around, and said, hey, this might be for me. So I don't think they fully realize the real impact they're making, but it's a day for parents in the community. If you want to expose your child to something for absolutely no obligation, you know, no cost, no nothing, they can. And they can do it with other peers and friends and just have fun with it. So that's kind of the beauty of the day that we're building here. So it's an amazing thing. So besides all the other fun stuff that they talk about, the culture, all the little mishaps that they talk about, that it drives them crazy, but meanwhile, we're kind of just like proud parents saying, like, look at what they did. It's such a great job. So, but this right here is living proof right here that they're making big impact. So appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Simo to give us an update on the fall and winter sports season. Mr. Semo, could you grab a mic? I'm sorry, so people at home can.
So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about our athletic programs. As you can see, just some of the things that we do in athletics is far more than just, what we're doing on the field of competition. I'm a big promoter for the lessons that our students take from athletics, but it's really important to understand, what's going on behind the scenes, and hopefully you get a snapshot of that today. Just a quick summary of what I'm going to talk about. First is just a program summary, kind of what our programs look like. The season recap, some of the highlights, and we have a special highlight that we're going to recognize tonight. Participation numbers, college commitments, and some of our department showcase items. So looking at the 3 seasons that we have, because spring season is actually here, I was able to provide you with some of these numbers. In the fall season, we have 9 varsity teams, 9 JV teams, 6 modified teams that we offer. In the winter season, we have 10 varsity program teams, 4 JV teams, 3 modified teams. And in the spring, you can see that we have a large number of programs as well that are running, 9 varsity programs, 7 JV, and 6 modified. One of the things that people often ask, in athletics, there must be a lot of contests. So it's kind of like running a field trip. Every game is like a field trip. Mr. Fink was at our games today. Mr. Harrington had a chance to come by and see our tennis and our lacrosse games this afternoon, and got a chance to kind of see the operations of what was going on. But really, it's almost like an event every single contest. And you can see here we have 306 we had 306 contests this fall, 279 this winter. And right now, without any postseason competitions built in yet, we have 345. So we're somewhere between 930 to 950 contests every single year that we put on within our department. We have 29 programs altogether. So looking at boys soccer, that would be one program where we have 63 teams underneath those programs. And our goal every single year is to align them vertically, really trying to impress upon them, just like we do academically, the importance of modified developing athletes into the JV level, developing them and preparing them for the varsity level. A closer look at the participants by season. So you can see that in the fall season, we have 432 athletes that participate. That's 31% of our population in grades 7 through 12. And of those 432, every year New York State Public High School Athletic Association has a program called Scholar Athlete Team Program or Scholar Athlete Program. And that's where you recognize students that have achieved 90 or higher in academics. And for the fall season, you can see with just over 200 varsity athletes, 119 of them were scholar athletes. So very impressive in terms of how our teams do, academically. In the winter, we have fewer programs, especially at the JV and modified levels, but still offer 333 opportunities for children to participate. And then in the spring, our largest season, we have 539 athletes, students participating, which is about 40% of our student population, which is a really large number. So really proud of the numbers that we have. One of the things that we've really been focusing on the last couple of years is the male to female ratio. All right, this is something that was, as a father of 2 daughters, was really important to me to see us really improve upon this. So right now our numbers stand at 561 females participating with as opposed to the 743 males that participate. So our female participation is about 43%, and our male population is at 57%. Some of the things that we've been doing to help improve our female participation is Girls in Sports Day. Mrs. Argenio had a chance to be at Girls in Sports Day. It's an annual event that we run at the end of October, early November. It's for all female students in Cornwall from grades kindergarten through 6th grade, and all of our varsity female sport programs put on a station. They go through the rotations. We have some local vendors come and provide them with snacks. This year we had, I think this year was somebody from West Point talking about proper nutrition, which was great for the girls. But a really fun event and just an opportunity for them to bond with our high school athletes and just learn about all the offerings that we offer here at Cornwall. Some of our fall highlights. I think one of the, we had a very successful, typically we have successful seasons, but some remarkable ones that we had this year in the fall. First, I'll start with the boys soccer program. Got to the state championship game, and if you had the opportunity to be there in Middletown for that game, it was just electric. I mean, just in the semifinal game where they came back down 3 goals and had an opportunity to compete for a state championship, it was just spectacular. Led by a great group of seniors and even underclassmen. To talk to Coach Quick a couple weeks ago just about building his schedule for the fall and, kind of picking his brain about where we're going to be, and he thinks we're going to be just as strong next year, which is wonderful. But individual player accolades, Brett Zimmer was selected as All-State and All-American. I believe that was the first time we've had an All-American in boys soccer. So congratulations to him. That was a tremendous accomplishment. And you can see we've had others. The other thing that I was hoping one of the leadership council members would have talked about, in leadership, one of the things that we do talk about is failure. I think in athletics you think, oh, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win. But one of the things that we also focus on is, okay, what about failure? What do you do when you fail? All right, and the reason that I bring that up is because I couldn't have been more proud this fall than a volleyball program. They won 20 consecutive Section 9 championships going into this season, and they lost in a heartbreaker to Warwick in the Section 9 championship. They still won the league, or their division, but they ended up losing their first Section 9 championship. And I couldn't have been more proud than the way that our coaches picked those kids up and that the way the kids represented them and held their heads high. I know that had to be a devastating moment for them, and obviously emotionally they were crushed, but they also understood that it was bigger than just that game. And, I know last year when they were going for their 20th consecutive, the pressure that was building upon them, you didn't want to be the first team, but I just couldn't have been more proud of the way they represented themselves during that moment. And again, a lot of accolades that went to their team as well. Winter highlights. So there was no bigger winter highlight than the one that I want to mention right now, and that's our state champion. Our swim program has been another focus for us with the help of the coaches. We've done a lot with our Linder swim programs, with our club programs, just trying to get kids in the pool and really start fostering a love that once was found in our pool. And I don't know if anybody represents that better right now than Devin Rothman. Devin, I remember when I first met him as a freshman, and we had a great story about him during his signing day, and just how he's evolved throughout his high school experience. But to see him, chase his goals and just work so hard to achieve them was remarkable this year. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Devin, who is our state champion swimmer from this season. So Devin, if you come on up. So Devin, 100-yard backstroke, 2026 New York State Public High School Athletic Association champion, is going to Drexel University, where he will continue to swim, and he is going to brain surgeon. Is that what you're doing? Yeah, brain surgeon. So it's come full circle for him. First, he was going to be a plumber. We talked about that, but he decided brain surgeon was more up his alley. So couldn't be more proud of Devin, not just the way he performs in the pool, but again, I'll go back to his leadership. We have a couple young swimmers that have classified up, and Devin's taken them under their wing. And we talk about passing the torch and defining our C. Devin represents exactly that. Not only is he successful in the way that he performs, but he's equally successful in the way that he carries himself and the way that he leads in his program. So Congratulations to you, your family, and your coaches. Other winter highlights that I are right up there in terms of impressive wins. Our girls basketball program won the Section 9 championship for the first time in many years, which was great to see. Tessa First and Anna Sanko were first team all section selections. Anna Sanko was also Player of the Year, and our coach, Dan Lang, was selected as the Class AA Girls Coach of the Year. Track and field also had a couple of high performers at the state level and the federation level that earned All-American status. College signings. This is one of our proudest moments in the high school, at least from our department, because it's really talking about what they've been working for. Less than 7% of high school athletes have a chance to go on to play at the collegiate level. And, we're really fortunate. So far to date, we've had about 18 to 20 athletes that have had an opportunity to compete at the college level and sign their letters of intent. And you can see these aren't, schools that are anything to sneeze about. So it's, not only are they doing high athletic things, but they're also going to great schools, which we're really proud of. So we have a couple more that are, kind of settling up where they're going to land. But if you're at one of our ceremonies, one of the biggest things that we talk about is appreciation. All right, and we talk a lot about, nothing in life happens without the support of others. And they have that one opportunity to thank those people in their lives that helped them get there. And one of the things that we've really been focusing on in athletics, which I'll mention in a little bit, is connecting our school community. So now when the students come to sign up for their signing day, one of the first things we ask them is, which teachers would you like to invite? What teachers helped you get here? So we're seeing a larger number of teachers now present during these ceremonies. Another big bonus for us is having community lunch. With the new schedule, we have the opportunity to do all of our signing days so that all the students can be there and it doesn't interfere with anybody. All the staff can be there, it doesn't interfere with anybody. So a real bonus for us with this schedule is having the opportunity to do these signing days. Key highlights that I just want to mention about our department as a whole, first and foremost, would be our Athletic Leadership Council. I think that has just been an amazing program for us to offer. Mr. DeBold and I have had an opportunity to speak at the state level about the program, and our students have actually had the chance to go to Leadership Council programs and speak to other students about that. And there's a lot of schools throughout New York State that have now adopted the program and the outline of what we've been doing to get programs in their schools and their districts up and running. The other one is the fitness programs for all. This is a big piece for us, and I know our swim coaches have here. They've had the opportunity to take advantage of this with our new fitness spaces that we have in the high school. And if you haven't had a chance to come by and see them, please make a point next time you're there to come and check them out. We have two great spaces that are up to date, state of the art, and now it's a safe space for everyone. And not only are our boys and girls swimmers in there, our cross country team is in there, our girls golf team, boys and girls skiing, and it's just wonderful after school to see how many of our students are taking advantage of those spaces. And now one of our focuses is actually getting students more familiar with those spaces during physical education class so that that number continues to increase after school with anybody. The percent of scholar athlete teams, this is something that we strive for. Our goal every year is to have every single one of our teams in the scholar athlete program. Unfortunately, I think we're one shy this year. Last year we fell one shy as well by a different program, but it is so hard to attain, and but that is something that we're so close for, which is wonderful. The increase of youth development and involvement. We do a lot of programs. I'm sure you see a lot of programs. That's on purpose. If there's a youth program that you see popping up, it's because it's a need for us, all right? Our youth tennis program is a direct it's a direct focus on increasing our numbers, just like our youth swim program. Those are directly focused on increasing our participations, providing opportunities for students to experience what the benefits of those programs are about. Also, our Girls in Sports Day, and we have a new boys basketball program that started 2 years ago, which we lost a couple years ago during COVID. We lost our CYO program. So having that opportunity to have a skill development type program that feeds into our high school and middle school programs has really been a major success in terms of participation. And the last, we talk a lot about Define the C. For us, Define the C is more than just the C that you'll see on our fields, on our helmets, or on our clothing. The C is really how we do things. It represents who we are as a community, as a sports program, as a district. We're really proud of the kids that we have. We're involved in a number of interviews this morning, and one of the applicants happened to be from Cornwall, and they talked about the culture that the C represents. And I couldn't have been more proud to hear this random person just talking about defining the C and what that meant to them. And a lot of that also curtails right into our community engagement. We do a lot of different things at events. You might have seen the save the date for next year. We're going to recognize the 2006 state semifinalist football program, which is great. And we have a couple other things that are in mind for next year. But every year we're trying to bring our alumni back and just remind them that this is still home for them, and remind everybody about the tradition of what our culture really represents. Dragon Day is an example of that, our golf tournament and our scholarships that we fund right from all of the programs that we're initiating. So extremely proud of that and everything that the kids are involved with. Any questions?
I just want to point one thing out, and Jason, thank you. This is a great presentation. Just to underscore and support something you said, because it's so rare, and it's exactly how I feel about sports. And like, few would believe it, but I was actually a high school athlete, not a drama kid. But you said sports is about failure. It's about learning how to lose. And I believe that with all my heart. That's why we teach kids. That's essentially what kids eventually have to learn out of sports. It's a very, very small percentage of youth athletes, as we all know, who go on and do this professionally. So at some point, they're going to hit the end of their line, and then they're going to have to look back and say, why did I do this? Why did I invest my whole youth in this? And most of us lose our last game, so to speak, literally or figuratively. So just hearing you say that, I thought it's great to hear the person at the top understands that perspective, because I think it's so easy to get lost in the wins and losses and lose sight of what the larger lesson is. So just want to say I appreciate that one point, and certainly agree.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you again to Jason for the presentation. When we met, one of the things that's always important to me is highlighting our student athletes who are scholar athletes. That speaks volumes to how well-rounded our students are. I know as a parent, the intense amount of time that goes into the dedication and the practice and it's your whole life. So to be able to then pull off your academics on top of it is an incredible feat. So congrats to all of our students who are involved in our sports. And Devin, congratulations to you. I could not be more proud of you. Not only is he a fantastic swimmer, but he's a fantastic kid and young man, I should say. And we wish you only the best at Drexel. You're gonna make us proud when you go there. So congratulations.
Oh, yeah, please.
I can turn the microphone on. Yeah. So I just want to thank you for the presentation, kind of echo what was said here. First off, Devin, congratulations. State championship is very impressive. But, to dovetail with Brendan and Megan's comments, I really appreciate that you highlighted the scholar athletes. And I really appreciate the college acceptances. that people are going to play sports there, because those can really be life-changing opportunities for some of our students at the next level of what that education can bring to them. I mean, a lot of those kids are probably not getting scholarships for those sports, but just to participate, and they'll have access to obviously the lessons that they'll learn from playing sports at the next level, but they'll have access to, you know, academic services and other forms of support that they would not have access to as general students. So they'll get the experience of that college sport as well as the things that will help them succeed behind it. So, I mean, I think that's really the purpose of having a sports program as a school district, is to have children learn those life lessons that are going to serve them. So I appreciate that you're highlighting all the ways that we're doing that, and not just, hey, we did really well, which is important and a great goal to strive for, but that you have the vision of how that's all intertwined. So thank you for that.
Other comments? I don't want to repeat what's been said because they all said it very well, but thank you, Mr. Simo. It's an incredible program, obviously. And, you know, I think even beyond just all that you've talked about and everyone has said already, I often find even when you just run into an athlete, you know, in public, or you see someone in a grocery store, just out of the corner of your eye, you can tell there's a certain sort of way they carry themselves, a bit of confidence. And I'm certain that comes from, you know, being part of something bigger than yourself. And so congratulations for all the success everyone's had. And of course, Devin, all the best to you. It's very exciting to see, you know, great accomplishments. So, and mom and dad too. Thank you. Righty, now I'd like to invite up Mr. Fink to present the 5th budget presentation for the 26-27 school year.
That's one way to clear the room. Let's just say budget, right? Okay, well, we'll go for it. Thanks again. Here we are. Let's get started with the mission. The Cornwall Central School District is committed to working together with the community to provide a secure and nurturing environment of diverse learning opportunities for all students. It is our goal to help students achieve their dreams and aspirations and to prepare them to confidently face challenges while promoting the strength of mind, body, and character. So, yep, we are moving through the process. So we have this evening and really next week, next Tuesday, which is our budget adoption day. The budget hearing is May 5th, and then our vote is that May 19th date. So a couple things on the agenda today. Not much has changed. I added a little slide here on number 1, and I'm going to jump to that because I should put a qualifier on it or a notation. You know, we're going to talk about the state of the state budget in a very simplified format, because I think it's important. So I'm not downplaying all the things that go down at the state, but I wanted to really boil this down to what have we been talking about here at the board meeting, okay? So where does the New York State budget stand? Because a lot of what we're doing, our work, hinges upon some of their work, right? So the week of January 19th, the executive budget was proposed. Governor Kathy Hochul came out with that. So the key points for us were the 1% increase in foundation aid, which didn't give us a lot of money, about $200 or a little over $200,000. Prioritize of UPK funding, so that would be $10,000 a seat. So that was a big win for us. And then there's other initiatives. Again, it's a very simplified format. And then the week of March 9th, we had the New York State Assembly and the Senate release their budgets. And boiling them down, they said that we're going to propose 2% increase in foundation aid. So we'd get an additional 1%. They were on board with prioritizing UPK funding at $10,000 a seat, as well as their other initiatives. So here we go with their budget is due April 1st, 2026. So that didn't happen, okay? That has been no surprise for the last several years, which is unfortunate and frustrating at the same time. So the Senate and the Assembly passed 2 budget extenders. The second one gets them to April 14th, so they're still funding kind of what's going on in the budget, in the New York State budget. They're set to return this week, today, tomorrow, and start making some decisions. There have been no reports of any progress made on the budget negotiations in recent days. This was not unexpected. There was many legislators off during the holidays. So what's the forecast look like? It's grim. It's unfortunate that the district will likely not have any additional information by the time we adopt our budget next week. That's on Tuesday. One key issue that is percolating that Christian mentioned last time we were here for our budget presentation is the pension system and some pension reforms and that fixed tier 6. So if you're paying attention to some news today, that could be, or more recently, that could be put our taxpayers out quite a bit is what's happening right now. We don't have a lot more information than that, but there is that kind of vulnerability moving forward if that pension system is kind of reformed. So where do we stand? So I'm going to reiterate, and I don't want to bore you to death on some of this. Oh boy, I'm not boring you yet. Huh?
No, sorry to interrupt. Just on the tier 6 issue, are those costs that would be borne by the state or by local school districts or some combination thereof?
We don't know yet, but a lot of the advocacy, there's advocacy on both sides, right, to say that we want to fix this tier 6, and a lot of advocacy is saying that it's going to go back to the taxpayers on this, while the state may have some additional funding, but unless Christian has some more information.
I mean, ultimately, it's the taxpayers. Are we are we paying it to Albany, or are we paying it to the Cornwall Central School District?
Are you going local, or are you paying? Correct.
Well, I mean, if may just sorry.
If I could just ask a follow-up question. It's for pensions, right? So the basic issue is tier 6 was implemented, whatever it was, a handful of years ago. New teachers coming in had to contribute more to their retirement accounts than previous tiers, and the retirement date was extended at 62 versus 55, if memory serves.
Sure.
But so there's not. Are there a lot of immediate costs? I mean, there'd be some immediate costs in the annual contributions if the percentages for the teacher contribution went down. I think the costs would be down the road more than they would be immediate. Is that accurate?
It would be our hope that this would be a tiered structure or phase-in process, right? So we're not going to maybe see or feel this hit so much in the 26-27 school year, but it would be a phase-in approach. It would be my guesstimate on that.
So, if this helps the understanding, there was a recent estimate that to fix tier 6 by what the advocates are asking for, that would be equivalent to a 2% increase in the contribution rate for our school district, which is approximately $1 million more in the budget in terms of nominal amounts. Who pays that $1 million, I think, is what Jim's question was about. And obviously, it's going to be, you say us. That's the contribution rate. Will they fully fix tier 6 in this one thing? That's probably not going to happen. And given this year, I'm sure the state would have to make some type of contribution into our budgets for next year because we are still tax capped. And the last time that we had an increase like this, it was not in the tax cap environment. So they might say you have to contribute more, but because our ability to raise revenue year to year is limited, there would have to be some type of workaround because obviously it would displace in every single budget in New York State at the local level. So that's the amount that they're considering. What they're agreeing to, obviously, is what they're one of the things they're discussing. So I think the thing with tier 6 is that there have been some adjustments since the original tier 6 and tier 5 and tier 6. So what they did originally is they used to have to average salaries over 5 years. Now it is 3. That generally allows you to get a higher reference number for whatever your pension is based on. My understanding is they get still less credit per year of service than, let's say, previous tiers. So previous tiers were 2% per year or higher once you vested. Tier 6 is 1.5, at least for most of it. And as you said, there is a later retirement age is that they can't retire without penalty until the age of 62, where in previous tiers it could be 55 depending on your credits. So all those different changes are things that could be adjusted. And I think the thing is that they want the 62. The key thing, I think, is not so much the year of credit, but the ability to have a pension without penalty prior to age of 62. So 55 would be what it would be for tier 4. So I think that's, and that the point is, what would that mean for us? That's a 2% increase in contribution rate permanently, higher than whatever it would be from investment returns or whatever the performance of the pension fund is. But we should note that it's really not the taxpayers that are paying for the pension for the most part. The teacher retirement system in New York State gets over 90% from investment income and less than 10% from both employee and employer contributions. If you compare that to the fire and police retirement pension or the ERS, where their investment income covers 70%, even Chad Alleman, who is an opponent of teachers' pensions nationwide, would say the New York teacher pension system is one of the uniquely ones that's good for the taxpayers and also good for the employees, provided that they actually have a full career. And I think it's because it's been well-funded and well-run for time. So my sense of this, as someone who was at the rally in Albany for Tier 6, is it's unlikely I think it's going to be fully implemented. I think the immediacy comes because there's an anticipation that the budgets will be tighter, and this might be the last time in the intermediate time frame to do something about it, because fiscal concerns will probably take over. And I think that's where I'm sure the discussion is, although this is not a public discussion.
Mr. Fink?
Thank you. All great information, and ultimately, I believe it's a sticking point that's going to delay their budget a lot longer than we think, and where it ends up, we don't know, but certain potential future liability for us financially. So recommended expenditure budget, you saw this slide before. We're looking at 97,086,599 on our expenditure side. We have some open items. I won't repeat them. We did make a reduction in the area of special education. That was our refinement of our numbers that we had, and then we reduced our transfer to capital fund that we have been doing for the past several years in terms of doing internal projects. Okay, hold on. Okay, so here's our summary of our breakdown. My apologies. I guess I need new batteries in this thing. From year to year, you're looking at 97,086,599 as compared to 92,986,803, the difference of just over $4 million. You can see your big drivers up there, which are your salaries and your health insurance, and then also our debt service was a large driver this year, which did have an offset on the revenue side. On the revenue side, our maximum allowable property tax cap is 4.81, which is about $2.5 million. We're recommending a 3% tax levy increase, which gets us about $1.6 million. We also recommended taking a transfer from our ERS reserve and our TRS reserve, and I'll talk about that in just a second and reiterate that. So our recommended revenue projection would be 94,586,599. The reasons for our ERS, TRS taking from those reserves is that we are in a healthy standpoint. They're specifically set up to help offset costs. The use of the reserves provide budget stability in year to year, so we can use that stability this year. And then, as Christian talked about, tied to the volatility of the stock market. So from our ERS reserve, we would draw down about $200,000, leaving us with $1.1 million. And from our TRS, we would draw down the remaining $318,692, which would leave us with a balance of $1.8 million. And then a recommendation to refund those reserves at the close of June 30th, 2026. Again, historically speaking, these are our contribution rates. So I want to talk about that. On TRS, you're seeing that 8.25 versus the 10% or 10.11 or 9.76, 10.29, and ERS very high, 17.6, 16.5. Those are the rates that the district is contributing at on a yearly basis. If you think about it, would you rather have a 10% raise or an 8% raise, right? You still are getting a very large raise. That 8% is still a large number. We're still paying that number. Even though it's less, you're still getting, it's still very large for us. As I mentioned, the district's reserves currently sit at comfortable levels to make this transfer, and then prioritize refunding. Again, we don't have to, we still are at comfortable levels, but it would be our recommendation. So on our summary sheet here, 97,086,599, with our total recommended revenues at 94,586,599. The shortfall is about $2.5 million. We would assign that through fund balance in order to balance our budget. And then we get to our recap sheet, which has all of our information really kind of put in one place with the recommended budget, what the recommended revenues are, and what our current shortfall is, and then what we would recommend for assigning as fund balance. We'd balance out our budget. You look at, on the left-hand side, the tax levy is the largest portion of our budget. State aid comes in next, miscellaneous, and then appropriated fund balance, kind of balance off that revenue side. And on the expenditure side, all those different categories we showed you on the spreadsheet make up those expenditures. We did not cut any staff or programs. That is happening in the area throughout Orange and Ulster, BOCES, and surrounding districts. They are making cuts, and they are utilizing their fund balance or their reserves or a combination thereof. Our instructional and operation programs are going to continue to develop. Again, we have not impacted that. We're staying within the property tax lap. We think we have a modest increase, a 3% increase, which we believe our voters would approve. And we are keeping our appropriated fund balance relatively low at 2.5, kind of that target area of 2 million to 2.5. What's the tax impact? So at 3% with the appropriated fund balance, star exemption included, no change in the town assessed value and no change in equalization rates. Those will change, but we're just trying to get a baseline for where we can expect. Fair market value of a house, about $350,000. You'd expect about $354 per year or $30 a month. Comparatively, if we were to increase the tax levy, so what would happen there? So every 1 point we go up in the tax levy, it's about $539,000. So what would it look like if we went from a 3% levy increase to a 4% levy increase? Again, you'd net about $539,000. We'd increase from, that $350,000 fair market value house would go a payment from $354 to $472. So a little over $100 more per year. And then if you were to go all the way up to the maximum at 4.81, on the same level, you're going at $576 per year. And again, same assumptions are taking into place here. No change in the town assessed value, no change in equalization rates with our 3%, 4%, and 4.81. So just a little comparative analysis. Just a reminder, I presented this slide before, so I'm recycling it. Historical data, tax levy data, and our voter information. This shows you on our 10-year average, we have about 1.75% tax levy increase. Our approval rating is somewhere around 67%. And then you're seeing 1,931 is that 10-year average for number of voters turnout. So what's going to happen with New York State budget? Again, we are waiting on some information, and I think we will continue to wait at least until May, would be my guess. So in scenario one, what if we receive more? We can reduce that 3% tax levy increase. We can reduce the amount assigned fund balance. Combination of both. We can do nothing, let it go into the fund balance. We can expand recommended programs, expand recommended expenditures, so program, staff, and capital to match the revenue. And reallocate funds budgeted for UPK to fund the recommended expenditures. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Because we have roughly, a $450,000 district allocation for UPK that we could utilize in other areas of the budget. Scenario two, if the district receives less state aid, so we can increase that 3% tax levy, we can increase the amount assigned fund balance, or a combination of the above. And we talked about this at the last meeting. Again, that allocation for UPK sits around $450,000, $475,000. So if we were to see the state budget come in, that $10,000 for UPK, we would look to add these additional items. There's a number of pieces of equipment or supplies up there, the cafeteria tables, equipment priority list in athletics. You're seeing a 0.5 greeter and a 1.0 float nurse. We want to shy away from staffing in order to avoid future costs related to staffing with respect to salary and benefits. And then if we were to get a little bit more in foundation aid, what could we do there? So again, a little over $200,000 would come if we would get that additional 1%. We'd look to do a TA at Cornwall Central High School and a 1.0 bilingual school psychologist for PPS. Contingency budget, it's the 0% tax levy. We would go back, so the board would have several options, and I won't read all these options to you. I shared them before, we discussed them before. We could go back, restructure our budget. We can put out the same tax levy, we can put out a lower tax levy, we can put out a higher tax levy if you really wanted to on a second vote. And if that second vote were to go down again, then you have no choice but to adopt a contingency budget, which is 0% tax levy. Our capital improvements, we've talked about, spending a lot of time on our capital improvement projects and updating our website and making videos. We are currently in video production. Thank you to Brendan for being our director of video production as we go around the district. It's quite amusing, especially catching people off guard. My apologies to Ms. Palumbo and Mr. Crissetti. So we talk about all of our Prop 1 tax neutral status, and Prop 2, which would have partial tax rate impact, and that's the additions. And Proposition 3 is our athletic fields at CCHS, which would have a full tax impact. Website is being updated with the budget as well as the capital project. So you should be seeing some more capital project information being loaded to that website shortly. We have some social media posts that will be going out. We will likely have a postcard that's going to be going out soon as well. Once we get the video into video editing, then we'll get those up on the website as well. So we're going to have some FAQs that will go up there as well. So we're knee deep in trying to get out as much information as possible regarding the capital project. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you, John. Questions from the board? Brendan?
John, could you just talk a little, well, first of all, the obligatory thank yous for the very thorough and well-explained presentation. Can you just talk us through what process we would go through as an admin board team and the very likely scenario that the state budget gets approved after we've already approved our budget, and let's say, there's an increase, more than we expected. From a sheer process standpoint, how would that go?
So we have to adopt our budget next Tuesday. So the likelihood of the state having their budget ready will be after the fact. So what we are doing here effectively is saying we have a spending plan in front of you. If we want to change what that spending plan were to be, then we should do that by next week, right? Then I think what we're being is completely transparent with our community and our public that if we were to receive these additional funds, this is what we're going to utilize them on. That would give us some leverage to move some money within the budget, and that way it doesn't look like we're doing anything nefarious, but we're being true to our word with, hey, we're hopeful that there's going to be more money here, and we want to utilize it in the most appropriate manner. So I think if there would be adjustments from the board at this time, I would like to know that in order to say these are the potentials that we want to put out there by next week. And then once we hit that, we're adopting that final bottom dollar number, right? That tax levy number. And then we will have the budget hearing on May 5th, and that'll be the end of it.
And what I'm asking, I think, is, maybe I'll rephrase it, everything you just described of like indicating the priorities of where we would spend money should we come in over after everything is legally set, right? Let's say we wanted to add positions because we have this money left over. What process do we have to go through as a board, if any, other than just approving the creation of those positions?
That's simply it. You'd
It's
create
no
those
more complicated than
no,
that, is it?
It's no more complicated than that.
John, you good?
Just on
Brendan?
that point, because I think maybe John, so they did pass a third budget extender today. So they basically pushed it off for another 7 days for the budget, which would bring us to next Monday. I know you mentioned the first two, but there's a third one, which means we're probably not going to get a state budget until April 20th at the earliest. or sorry, April 30th, yeah, 7 days.
We were watching lacrosse. We had negotiations, and then went out to watch lacrosse, Brett and I. And
It doesn't
tennis.
change what you anticipated, so what we anticipated.
It just makes our anticipation official.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah. Other questions, Jim?
Christian, I think you had your hand up first, but I just want to dig in on, I want to piggyback on Brendan's question because it was mine. So let's just, I want to use the real concrete example. If the UPK funding comes in, that's in both the governor's proposal and both one house proposals, you have a list of recommended additions here, $461,000. So let's just say we as a board say we want to do these. How does the rubber meet the road? How do we, if we think that's going to come through, but it's not going to be official by next Tuesday, and I think the odds of it being official next Tuesday are under 1%, and that's generous. What's the mechanism for doing that? Or I understand your point. You said, hey, let's be honest and transparent. We want to put that in there and put that in the budget. How do we fund that until the state budget comes through? How do we say that we're funding that? With fund balance, with tax levy increase?
So the, yeah, fair enough question. So maybe I missed it with yours, Brendan, my apologies. So the budget doesn't start till July 1, right? So if they come through and we get that funding, it's going to be a budget transfer process starting July 1. So we're going to take that $450,000 out of that UPK funding line, okay? And we're going to move it to whatever funding line we want. In the end, the bottom line is that we are not taxing our taxpayers any more than we've said we would.
It doesn't increase local tax revenue. It just changes expenditures because there's more coming in from the state.
Correct.
So we could do all the items on this list by taking board action in July or August, pass resolutions to fund these priorities without a change to the budget.
Correct.
And if the money doesn't come through, they don't happen.
We don't have to do anything. So I would recommend at the July reorg meeting, if this were to come through, that I would set up a budget transfer similar to the one that's on the board meeting this evening. There was one that any budget transfer over $25,000 comes to the board. So we would take.
No, perfect. The light bulb, like in the cartoon, went off. We're not getting any more local tax revenue, so it doesn't affect the vote that we take next week.
The vote's going to stay the same. Because in the end, we're only collecting X amount in tax levy dollars, and that's it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just on that, just to respond to that point. So what happened last year, because Mayapac's original budget failed, and then the money came in after obviously they set their first budget. They took the additional state funding and basically rewrote their budget, same spending, lowered the tax levy by the amount that they got from the state. So you can revise, if your first budget fails, you can rewrite a new budget anticipating whatever the state has now provided you, and that can be worked into that budget, and you don't have to necessarily go through the transfer process. Now, I'm not saying let's fail the first budget so we can do that, but the point is that's an alternative because it probably will occur before, the state budget will probably occur before we vote, the community votes on the budget. I know, like I'm saying, that's what happened last year. Mayapac did that. And obviously, it just, as I said, the vote is to levy a certain amount in taxes. So that is the local contribution. That's what you spend it on is not necessarily bound by the amount you levy.
Yep, that's correct. So the example is Mayapac. They had arguably 2% tax levy increase. State funding came in. It matched exactly almost to that 2%. They went out, I think they went out with a 0% tax levy because their budget was voted down the first time.
But they told the public vote no and then come back again and vote yes, right? Didn't they? Or no?
No.
I don't believe that's what they said. At least that's not what was reported.
Okay.
But the point is that's what they did.
Yeah.
Our money, I'm sure, went into our unallocated fund balance, and then it was part of the recharging of those funds.
Correct.
Other questions? Christian?
So this is kind of an expansion on a previous comment, but this is about using the money from the TRS and ERS reserves. So since last meeting, just a few things. Just I have two kind of problems with this. The first one is the rationale for using a TRS reserve in this particular year. And so let me just lay that out. So the contribution rate this year is 8.25% on our payroll. The last time that the TRS reserve was that low was in 2009. So this is basically the lowest it's been in any recent memory. And so when you have, let's say, a contribution rate that's that low, you are going to, this is really the opposite situation, and all you have to do is look at the explanation, even in the budget slides, that the TRS reserve is there to buffer against increases in the contribution rate. And so this is exactly the opposite of that, in the sense that we're kind of on the low bound of what that employer contribution rate is going to be. And second thing about that, it's not just that it's the lowest level, but we have the second largest decrease year over year from the previous year. So once again, if you look at it in that way, it's also, once again, not the situation where you would take money from the reserve. And I think that we need to, what happens if the contribution rate just goes up to its historical average over the last quarter century, which means it goes up to 10.25%. That means in a future budget, perhaps even next year, and that's not considering fixing Tier 6. This is just that, hey, the next 12 months might not be the greatest investment year for the fund, which is diversified, but it's globally diversified, and that if it just goes back to the average, what we're going to have to do is find $1 million in next year's budget from somewhere, which is equivalent to 1.8 tax levy points. And so the point is, whatever benefit we get this year, we are potentially likely setting ourselves up for a situation where we're going to have to find that. And because the way the state funds this is that it just garnishes our state aid even before we receive it to pay for these contributions. So that's only if it snaps back to the average. So what happened the last time it was this low is we had 4 straight years of 2.5% increases in the employer contribution rate. So that would be equivalent on our payroll of finding $1.2 million additional 4 years in a row. And that is potentially, I think, this is probably not the time to do it, especially when we have the alternative of using the tax levy to cover that. And we have the space in the tax levy. So my feeling about this is that the tax levy is your renewable resource. Your reserves are a finite, non-renewable resource. And we are probably going to deal with an issue down the road. It's not because the pension is not going to get paid. We legally have to pay that. It's that it's going to displace something in a future budget. And it's unlikely, I think, looking at our major categories, what is going to decrease to offset that increase if it occurs. The predictions right now about the health insurance are that it's going to be similar to the increase of this year over year. So we're not going to get a windfall there. And eventually, in the future, we have the tax levy space this year. Looking at my rough calculations, and obviously we don't know everything for next year's tax cap, it's probably not going to be as high, or there's not going to be as much space, even though there's some rollover. John, I'm sure you're familiar with that. But I think that it'd be more prudent to do it this year on the tax levy. Now, the ERS reserve increased. The TRS reserve did not. And it's larger in terms of nominal contributions because we have more instructional staff than we have covered by the ERS. And so even though the percentage is higher, the total amount, I believe, is significantly lower. I don't see the nominal amounts, but that would be my memory from last year. So the other problem with this is just
Christian, before you get to a second point, can we ask about your first point?
Sure.
Just because I just have some clarifying questions. Okay. The state decides the 8.25%, yes?
It's not the state. There's a pension fund.
A formula. We're not dictating that.
It's managed by, there's a pension manager. They manage it. They have actuarial. It's a professional team.
Okay.
But it's not made by like the state legislature or elected officials.
Okay. And then when you say it's the lowest it's been since 2009, that's currently, or that will be as a result of the 8.25%? Okay, so the lowest increase or the lowest percent is what you're referring to, not the fund balance. Right. But when you're referring to it is the lowest, it's the 8.25% is the lowest it's been? Right. The actuaries, yeah. I'm just trying to understand if you're talking about the
Correct.
balance.
I'm just trying to make sure, John, I'm not sure if that,
That is what I understand is the final number.
so the ERS, we have a final number. The TRS doesn't get settled to July in stone.
Okay, so
And it actually can go up. We had that happen 2 years ago
in July.
in July, where they told us the rate was arguably 10.11, which is one of our numbers up there, and they said, whoops, it's 10.25.
Mm.
We had already set based on a 10.11.
Okay.
I'm just using that as an example. So we can say it's going to be 8.24 or 8.25, which is what they would tell us. In July, they can come back and say it's 8.5, we're sorry.
Okay. So the reference to the lowest amount is that 8.24% is the lowest that we have to contribute in the past couple of years. And the concern is that in the future years, it's likely that that would increase and we're going to have to find that money someplace else. Am I recapping that?
Well, I mean, there's many things that could happen. So what happened back in 2009 is that you had those 4 years of 2.5% increases, and that's what probably precipitated the creation of Tier 5 and Tier 6, because that was like letting out the pressure on that from school district budgets by lowering,
right.
let's say, the benefit that was being paid out of the
They
pension
have to make
fund.
up what they need, yeah.
Right, so,
All right, I just wanted to know what you were
so my
referring
point
to.
is, like, I would have to go back and read what the legislative notes were for what their rationales were at the time. But my point is that would be my assumption given when things occurred.
Okay, I wanted to understand that systemically. Okay, thank you.
I have a point, or a question and a point. So one of the scenarios you brought up, Christian, is basically what if this coming year is not, financially a great year in the markets, and therefore there's the gap that we have to make up widens even further. And this is a question for John. It's my understanding that the need, I'll put need in quotes, to backfill the fund, what we've taken out of it, is best practice and not a legal requirement. So if this next 12 months is rough, then we can say, all right, well, we can't do the whole thing this year. We can put 50% in and then, hope for sunnier skies next year. So although not ideal, it's not like in this worst case scenario that Christian described, it's not like we would have to find $1 million in our budget. We would just contribute in that scenario probably as much as we could, and then hope the next year that we can contribute even more. Is that correct?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking John.
We have to contribute either way, right? We're contributing at that percentage no matter what. So what Christian's saying is we might have to contribute at a higher percentage, right? Which would increase what our already, we pay $7 million or something like that. It could go up to $8 million, and that's going to come right out of our budget next year. So how do we bridge that gap? Do we use $1 million from the reserve? Do we just put it into the tax levy for the following year's budget? So that would be 27-28's budget. So we have some options, and that's kind of what we presented you with options here today.
Right. So that, in the case of it having to fill, $1 million gap, that problem would be in front of us regardless of how much whether or not we take any money out of these funds this year. We would just have more money in the funds to cover that.
Correct. Well,
But-
and like you said, recommendations to backfill at June 30th, 2026 here.
Yeah.
So
So, okay. So
there's no obligation, as you said.
So I just want to decouple then the action that we're taking from the situation that you're describing, Christian, where if we take the money out, we are then vulnerable to those actions that you described. We would be vulnerable to those actions you described regardless of whether we took the money out. We might be in a less advantageous position to address them, but the problem that we're talking about is, I believe, I thought we were talking about was our ability to backfill the funds in the 27-28 budget.
But I think we're going to backfill those funds at the end of this fiscal year. So we're going
Coming
to take
fiscal
it.
year. Yeah, that's what I mean.
No, in June
Oh,
26th.
ideally,
No?
yeah.
So
Right.
But
That
at the
begs
end of this fiscal year, that money
Our
is going
books
to be back
close
in.
June 30th.
Look,
But
I
yes,
think
our audit in August happens.
Everything that has been described
From
is-
this cycle. So that
everything-
money will be back.
My point is just that everything that has been described is accurate and interesting. It just might not be as interrelated as it might seem at first listen.
So my second point was our ability to backfill, which sort of addresses what you raised. Because we're talking about like, oh, we're just going to have, the money's just going to be there, and there's an infinite backfill to backfill any holes we create now. And that's not true, because the reserves are a non-renewable resource, and they have to be recharged from somewhere. And we do have not an unlimited ability to recharge those resources, and that brings up how we've been doing it recently, and why we've been able to do some of this recently, and whether that's likely to continue. But I would add this, that what will be different in the future is we're almost certainly going to have a lower tax levy cap number, I would guess. It's not official, but in terms of what is free space within there. I think what's also in the future is, all I was pointing out was not a worst case scenario. That was just a regression to the mean, and where it has been really most of the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm not saying this is like catastrophe happens. This is just like if we return back to business as normal in terms of what the fund is. I used the example after 2009 just to give you an example of like what could happen and did happen. The worst case, if you want to look at the numbers and let's say what is the worst case that happens, the worst case scenario of the last 25 years, that would be equivalent to finding $5 million for the increase in the hole. Now, what happened, several things happened since 2009. We passed 2 changes in the pension tiers, 5 and 6. They instituted a tax cap, which is one reason why this number has been pushed down, because, well, you can ask for whatever you want for the pension fund, but if you cap what we can increase in our local revenue, they have to plan and take that into account. And that's one reason why Tier 6 was created, is basically to reduce the obligation going forward so that it would be, doable with a tax cap of 2% plus whatever the adjustments are on the tax cap number. So my point about it is the last time this happened, there were a lot more fiscal resources than we're likely to have now or in the future. And so the additional point is that this is a year where you don't do it because, as I said, the whole point, and this is even just from John's budget presentation, is this is to really buffer against increases in the contribution rate. And so that we're doing this really for the first time in recent memory when there's been the largest decrease in the contribution rate. And also, let's say one of the lowest levels seems to be that it's like we're taking money from our kids' college fund to buy the new flat screen TV, where we can take the money, it's fungible, but the point is that money was dedicated for a certain purpose long term for a certain type of risk that we know could occur. And if we do that this year because we just don't want to reduce the tax levy cap, that's why I said it's irresponsible, because in my view, if you have tax levy space, and I looked at other budgets, and John, lots of districts have gone this, some have made the cuts already. Eastchester has a tax levy increase of 7%. I don't think that's going to pass, but that's what they set on doing when they adopted their budget. A lot of people have gone to the reserves, have done that after maxing out their tax levy, and then they go to the reserves because that's what they have left, but they at least use their tax levy first. Now, not everyone, but that's what a lot of districts seem to be doing. And
our history says that we haven't gone close to our
we have had
tax
a very
cap, right. So I guess that's the fine balance, and you're absolutely right. And there are a number of districts who are eyeing piercing the cap this year, and certainly considering and saying next year we will likely pierce the cap. So I think that is all on the radar as to what you're talking about.
So I guess what I'm pointing out is no one knows the exact future. I'm just trying to lay out scenarios about what we won't have in the future, as I've said before, is a time machine to come back to this point in time and redo our decisions, because we are lucky that we built up reserves over 20 years, which means we are not in the position that some other districts are right now because they didn't have those reserves. And that's why they're cutting now and not next year, because they're already at that point. But if we start using our reserves, we're going to get to that point. And I think almost everyone gets to that point once you start going down that path, not because people intend to, because something is going to come up that is going to be a shock to the budget, and we have to find that space from somewhere. And I have my concerns about what we're going to be able to get outside of our local tax levy, which is we're fairly close to the hold harmless threshold by looking at where we are compared to that. So we might not see any increase from the state year over year. And so that $4 or $5 million increase in budget to budget is going to have to come either out of the local tax levy or it's going to come from cuts. And that's what we're setting ourselves up for, and that's where my concerns come from. Now, look, this is not saying you have to do it a particular way, but I think that in the discussion that it's not harmless. And the second point was what I think is going to happen to our ability to backfill if we start using our reserves like in a tax reduction reserve, and then that has to be recharged. Because 2.5 million, I think we can recharge from the normal churn. Once we start and I'm just looking at what our numbers are and what I think we have been told by the state that next year's budget is going to be even more stingier in terms of foundation aid, and that we are pretty close to the hold harmless, which means we might find ourselves in a situation where there's no increase in state aid, but our budget will increase, and that is what my concern is. And that's why I would rather use the tax levy this year, because that will increase our capacity going forward and puts us in a better position. So this is a better time to, and I kind of said this with the state's consideration of Tier 6. This might be the last time that you have an opportunity, because the future budgets, and people have been saying this, I've been saying this since 2023, the future budgets don't look great structurally. And it's not just for education, because we have our highway department asking for more funds from the state because they want to work on the roads. And a lot of people have their hand out as if the state has an infinite budget. And while they can raise taxes, they run into some constraint where their ability to be generous is going to be limited. And I think that's what we have to decide, whether we are concerned about that.
Christian, may I recap what I think I
Sure.
hear you saying? So your recommendation for the board to consider is that we do not take the $518,000 out of the reserves that would then be replenished this year, that we don't do that, but instead we consider increasing the tax levy to 4% to cover that spread, which would then give us that money in the budget moving forward.
Right. So if I had the magic wand and I'm all 5 votes of this board, I would not have the cuts and I would not have the pull from the reserves. And whether you do the $300,000 transfer to capital doesn't really matter, because that will increase the tax levy, or you know what I'm saying? So like it doesn't really encumber any other space. But if we go up to 4.8, I think that would actually cover what's not there.
So you're recommending that the board consider a 4.8% tax
I
levy?
would consider higher. Obviously, this is not like a switch, one or the other. It's a slider. We can pick any number in between 3 that we have now in our budget assumptions and 4.81. And the other reason why I would put that in this budget today is that we get 2 chances to pass this budget. I would bet on the community to be more generous, in the sense that, hey, and if they're not, we can come back to what is being proposed now, which means that's our second chance. And you understand, I think that is what you would do if you can think like, okay, let's take a chance to put ourselves in the best possible position, not just for this budget year, but in future budget years. Because once you raise the tax levy, if we go to contingency budget in the future, at least we're going to have a tax levy of a certain level. And that puts us in a better position for our staff, better condition for our young students who will be in this district for another 10 years. And I think that is a perspective that, at least maybe incorrectly, that I'm trying to take here. So that's why I would make this decision this year, since we have the room. We may not have that room in the future.
Okay.
And that's why I would urge to do that now. So my second point was our ability to backfill, but it's really why I think using reserves is going to get us into a tight position. But I think that the force of that point is still what I've said already.
Okay.
So I don't need to say that.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
I mean, I appreciate everything that Christian is saying, and I think I would love to put our district in a stronger position with, a higher tax levy to, baking that in, as we're in Christian's words, but I think the idea, so that even if we hit austerity in the years to come, we have a higher baseline. I think the realistic variable that we haven't talked about, well, two of them, John alluded to one, we just don't have a history in this district of getting that high, 3%. It's on one of these sheets, but would be our highest itself in almost 10 years. So that in itself is going to be considered, I think, a big ask of the community.
And they were the last 2 years, I'm sorry, but just to clarify, they were the last 2 years, so people's increases over the past, look, even 4 years, that is a worry.
And as we get to 3 and then get over 3, then you start to see the percentages. I mean, in 18-19, 316, we came razor close there at 53%. So
That, I'm sorry, I misread that a little.
so 3 is 3 is a pretty high number for this district, and I do although Christian is saying, if it fails, you run it back again. I don't know if that doesn't sound I'm not comfortable with that being our considered strategy. Throw it up there and let it fail. I haven't, frankly, given that enough serious thought, I think, to really consider that at this point. But anyway, the point is, every community is different. Every community has a different appetite. I appreciate Christian has a higher appetite for the tax levy increases. I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I think it's just, the risk assessment through your eyes, Christian, is a little different on that front, and that's just, I think, a reality of differing perspectives. But the other factor is also we have a capital project that's on the same ballot, which I do think we have to consider from the voters' perspective how they're going to be absorbing all of this. And I think that may lead or may affect the previous point about putting up a budget that you think might fail because you have another shot. If you put that up with a capital project vote, I don't know the voters' ability to separate their annoyance with one thing from the other and say, well, I'm going to vote no on this budget, but I'm going to vote yes on this. I think at that point, you're more likely to see the dominoes go in order, and you don't get to run back your capital project. Certainly, I mean, you could, but it's not like as easy as the process of running back your budget vote. So for those reasons, I am skeptical of our ability to raise it much higher than 3, if at all.
So I've shared with the board, maybe not the new members this year, but in the past, if you just take a simple regression of what has the tax levy been and what is the percentage of support, it would imply that the 50% support roughly is at 5.1% of the tax levy. And that would be over the tax cap era, so back to 2014. And with a R squared, meaning goodness of fit, that would allow you to publish that as research, meaning well over an R squared of 0.4. So if just to give you a context for what I think, I mean, obviously every vote is a different vote in a different environment, but if you take over, let's say, a series of votes where that resistance comes from or where we're getting close to that line, that's what the statistics would tell you. This is, I mean, what you said about the capital project is, one reason I brought up certain issues. That is why in last fall that I said, instead of putting the capital reserve, we should keep this money powder dry for some other things, because anticipating what we're told about the budget. Now, that's a decision that's been made. But also, that there is a trade-off between, well, the more generous capital budget and the priorities that addresses, and then the things that are in our program. But this is the way I guess I look at it next year. So where is our community going to be in May of 2027? So, not taking a political position on this, but we know that our town taxes are going up. Most of this hasn't been paid yet, but by next year, people will have made one pay, and they're going to see a several $100 increase on their town side of their property taxes. And then they're going to see a several $100 if we pass everything that we're proposing right now without my additions, another several $100. And so they're going to see something on the order of between a 6 and 10% increase of whatever their property taxes are now, no matter what their level is. And once people, right now it's conceptual, but next year it'll be actually someone paid that, and it's going to be in their actual budget. They had to pay out that money in their property taxes. Plus, and look, who knows what's going to happen to the world economy, but I think there's good reason to believe that with the prices increase in diesel, which is basically the same as fuel oil, that we're going to have, if we have a cold winter, we're going to have a lot of people who are going to just gone through a really, really expensive winter in fuel oil, and then they're going to come up in May 2027, and if you think that, and we're going to have to raise our tax levy at least 3% again, just to cover what is likely to happen next year. So, and then the budget goes down then. And so my point is, this is conjecture, but that's my evaluation of what I think the risks are. And I think that's what we are doing when we put together a budget, particularly the funding side of the budget, the revenue side of the budget. And the things we are doing, whether the decreases in the transfer to capital, out of district special education tuition, the drawing from the ERS and TRS reserves, that's $1 million that's not going to roll over into next year's budget, and that's going to impair our ability to recharge all the things. The $2.5 million that we're going to restore to our unallocated fund balance, the ERS TRS reserve. And if we continue doing that, we're encumbering that. And so if anything happens, so one, we have the regression to the mean, that's at 2%, $1 million. And then we have what happens if Tier 6 gets reformed. That's another $1 million.
I think you
And
made, so I just want to give other people an opportunity. Jim?
So Christian, I just, sincerely, I thank you for bringing this. I think this happens every budget year that we've both been on the board together, where you say we should raise the tax revenue up to the cap, or, higher than is proposed. And you've got your philosophical reasons behind it, which you've laid out. I appreciate them. I disagree with them. And I think that the part of your analysis that you leave out is you're forward leaning and looking at, okay, well, it gives us more room for future budgets, which, as you say, we don't know what they're going to be. There are certainly warning signs, more warning signs than there have been in the past. I think the part of the analysis that you leave out is you're not spending money in this year's budget. So it's, saving the taxpayer this year and the year before and the year before, where you would have raised taxes more. So you've got to balance those two factors. So I agree with Brendan, 3% is high for where we have been as a district. We do have a capital reserve going out with asking people for tax increases on some of those propositions. So I guess here's my overall thoughts on the budget as we have presented to us, the administration's recommended budget. In past years, we've done a lot of horse trading, and here's a list of 10 positions, and you can fund 7 of them, how are you going to do? And we had flip charts, and we haven't done a lot of that this year because we've been waiting for New York State, and now we're finally realizing New York State's not going to come through. I am okay with all of the funding as it's laid out here in this administration's proposed budget. I don't have anything that I would say there. I think Christian, or any changes I would make to that, Christian, you made, I think, good arguments on the ERS, TRS reserves. I agree with them partially. Ultimately, if it comes out of ERS, TRS reserves, I think you would want to see that money come out of a tax increase. The other way to do it would be the allocated fund balance. I think I'm willing to let, John's going to have to steer this ship, so I'm willing to let him say, hey, I'd take it out of this ERS, TRS reserve rather than the fund balance. I would certainly say that, I would agree with everybody that the expectation is when we're done with the accounting of June 30th, 2026 for this school year, that we would refund that money immediately. And I think, and when you look at the past, The past 2 or 3 years, all or nearly all of our money has gone to capital reserves, our leftover money to that capital reserve project. Assuming, hoping that this capital project passes, that need will be less pressing. You know, 4 or 5 years ago when I was first on the board, we funded ERS, we funded TRS, we added funding to that. I think we added some additional funding to tax certiorari reserve. So I would say most of that money we might allocate some amount to the capital reserve, but I think the majority of it, you know, first priority would be to refund the $518,000 to ERS and TRS combined, perhaps add additional funding there, as well as adding to tax certiorari reserve. 3% tax levy, I don't love it. I love, you know, trying to give our taxpayers the lowest tax increase that we can. I don't see how we can go much lower than that this year. I mean, I think this is a good balance of all of the factors that we've talked about. I think this budget proposal is mindful of potential dark and stormy clouds ahead, but also trying to not overburden our taxpayer this year. I think it's trying to walk that tightrope, and I agree with how it's laid out. And I think the last thing I will say is if that UPK funding does come through on the state budget, I am okay allocating it to these priorities here, noting that a lot of these priorities are not staffing, not ongoing costs, but one-time equipment costs, and that the big staffing ask here is for that FTE float nurse, which was so important that we, as a board, last month or the month before, voted to add that immediately this year, which we rarely do. So making a commitment to bring that on full term, I think that's, you know, the number one priority there. So when you look at that staffing number, so a long-winded way of saying I'm okay with this budget as it's proposed, and I would vote yes for it next Tuesday.
So can I just say one thing quickly to respond to Jim? So Jim, as someone who has worked with you over the last 3 years and served with you on the audit committee, I've never had any doubt that you are a serious person, particularly that you read the details, you are making, and as you said, we have different ideas about budgets. I would push back, but I'm not going to go back and forth, but I just wanted to state, like, I know that you do the homework. I know that you look carefully on the details on this. When I was on the audit committee with you, I know that you read everything, because you and I could pull out the small details because we did look at the fine print for us. And so, as I said, this is fundamentally it's a value decision, right? And it's a decision about, you know, what we think our community can bear and what do we think our students and staff and everyone else who's affected by our budget needs. And what will happen, though, if we decide that we've reached our limit of our ability to fund it, we have to be ready to perhaps maybe give up some of the things that we think are important, and then we have to be, in future years, be ready to do that. And hopefully, we'll be able to do that.
Okay. Jamie?
Just one thing on what Christian said, Jim, whatever. In some ways, it's a value proposition, right? Like, where do we want to take from? What do we value? What do we see? But like, at the end of the day, I think I can speak for myself when I say I would love to push it to 4.8%. Like, I think I would pay for it. Like, I think it's a great value. But I don't think, based on this chart behind everyone, it makes me very nervous, and I want the capital projects to pass, right? And I want the budget to pass. So I think it's a balance between saying, like, what my values state, but also what I truly believe people will vote for. So I think that's an important distinction to make.
And if I could piggyback on that, I think that in addition to value, it's what people genuinely can afford. New Windsor Town did get a significant tax increase. We just got our tax bill, I mean, a couple $100. So what you were referring to about Cornwall potentially next year, New Windsor has gotten that this year. And, you know, they're having worked at the food bank in New York City, families are 3 paychecks away sometimes from, you know, being able to make ends meet. And so I also look at it as if I agree. I would love to do 4.8 and have that security and have that money in there. And Christian, you've made this scenario each year, and it's compelling. I just also know that folks sometimes need time for their salaries to catch up with the ask. And it might just be a matter of their cost of living increases covering tax increases, right? It's not a big deal, but I would hate to put a big increase plus a capital project plus what I know New Windsor residents have recently had. You know, it could be a big burden for some families. So I think that the balance, I think Jim said it well, you know, in terms of what levers we can push, how we can get what we need, and it's still the highest we've gone out with in many years. So I would just add that to the thinking. Richard, Carl, Lofton, I mean, just want to make sure everyone has a chance to.
I'll be quick. I agree with what everybody said, actually. But I've been thinking about this for, since we started this budget discussion, and I have to kind of agree with Christian, I don't want us to be in a position next year where we save now, but we're paying later. And I'm just very leery of relying so heavily on the reserves. So what I would suggest, that's just me, I would not take out of the ERS, TRS reserves, and I would add that to the tax levy, the 518,000. That would be 4%.
Anyone else?
Well, I just want to reiterate some of what you said, Christine, because I think that it does get lost when we talk about value. And, I think that it's easy to say increasing the tax levy more is indicative of supporting the students more, supporting the schools more. But it's a uncomfortable question, but I think it should be, or an uncomfortable element of this, but it should be introduced. Supporting the students of what families, though? Families that can afford it. After a certain point, you do price people out. And I think whenever this discussion comes up, it's telling that the districts that we refer to are Westchester districts and very wealthy Westchester districts. And I don't want to become one of those districts personally. I think that we have a lot of, there are a lot of great things about our district. And I think a lot of the reasons that families move here and families stay here is because obviously the schools, but it offers an opportunity for families that may not be able to afford a $1 million home in Eastchester. Well, that would be a steal. But they can still get a public school education that is comparable. And the faster that we increase our taxes and the faster we become one of those districts, the faster we lose that identity. And it's not just an identity, I think it's a real value. So for all of the other reasons that we discussed, uncertainty as to whether the levy could even pass at 4%, as long as we're now moving this into values, that's where I feel about this, that I think that we need to keep in mind what kind of families we have in this district and what kind of families we want to keep.
I'd like to just give Lofton and Carl a chance to talk, and then I think we can do a straw poll in terms of where the board's head's at. Okay, Lofton?
I just want to touch on the fact that it's not our relationship as a district with our community is a relationship. And my concern with us doing what's best for us as a school and not factoring in how that's going to impact our community members in any way, and not, in any relationship we want to compromise. And I think us taking money out of, some places where we may not want to, and it may not be for our best interest shows that we're trying to do what we can to mitigate the effect on the community. And I think that builds a certain amount of trust and goodwill that we can take forward in, because then our community trusts us that we are not just putting down a number that suits us as far as the tax levy increase. And we are willing to do things, at least for now, that are a compromise that help that for them, the situation for them, for the taxpayers. And I think that builds a kind of goodwill and a kind of trust that, like, if next year we have to ask them for a higher amount, that we really need it, not just that, we don't want to have to be put in a difficult position ourselves for the time being, if that makes sense. So I think that's another piece to this puzzle that is maybe not obvious or, not quantifiable, with statistics, but it is like a personal thing that really does affect the way that our community is going to continue to trust us and vote. That, we are trying to, do our best to not, put them in a situation where they're, in a higher tax. I'm part of New Windsor as well, and we're getting it, and I especially those of us in New Windsor, that are in the Cornwall district. It's nice that we've gotten kind of the, Diet Coke of, we get to be in the Cornwall school district, but as a whole, we are lower income, families, and our houses, are maybe not as high valued, but still that, every percent really counts, I think, a lot more to some families than others, and we're one of those families. So, I think it is a balance and a compromise, as anything is.
I really wasn't going to touch this too much, but I have to say that I do agree with Richard. With Richard and Christian. However, my biggest thing is what Brendan's been bringing up and Jim's been bringing up, the future. The taxes that people are going to have to pay, and can they afford it right now? And so that's where I'm at.
John, anything, Christian? I'm going to ask you if it's something in addition, just because I would like to get to a straw poll.
It's an addition, because we've talked about people's ability to pay and, what they contribute. And I've been on the board 3 years, and every single year I have been in the top 3 in terms of school tax paid. And I am in the bottom 3 probably in income, although I don't know what everyone's income is. And these are public numbers, you can look it up. And the point is that, I have the pinch probably more than most of the people who are making a decision here. But what I've also said in the past is we treat school taxes like they're an expense. And the value of your home, and there's been a lot of research on this, when you pay school taxes, it's like a capital expenditure in your home. And the biggest investment that people have here is the wealth they have in their home. And if we are now, quote unquote, we like to talk about ranks, there's a big difference between the #1 ranked school district in the county and the 2nd ranked, and how people make. And I make this point to my students all the time, and I pick examples from Cornwall, where you have a house based on the same model, right on the line with Washingtonville or some other district, and this is all based on perceptions. I'm not criticizing other districts and their quality. And you can look at the price difference. And I know, Brendan, just because you're familiar with the area, there is a street in Fleetwood, in Mount Vernon, between Mount Vernon and Bronxville, where all the houses are exactly the same. And the houses on one side of that street are in Mount Vernon, and the other side of the street, they're in Bronxville. Same street, same all amenities, same design of the house, same style of the property. Look at the difference in the prices of those homes, and you would see, and I teach this every year, we're talking about a several $100,000 difference in the sale price of their house. And that's 15 years ago. And that's the difference when you don't pay taxes. It's like not making an improvement on your house and thinking that you're going to be able to sell your house for the same property. And when you pay school taxes, probably the best way to think about it is not an expense, but as that improvement on your home that will make your home, allow you to sell your home for a higher amount. And even though, yes, that does mean you have to spend the money, not doing it, not fixing your roof. You might get a few more years out of the roof, but then when the hole in the roof is the big issue, and it'll cost you a lot more. And that's just the perspective that I take to this. And that's why I say, yeah, you bite your tongue and you vote yes on the budget. And that's just my point about looking at it in terms of what people can pay. And I understand how that does change the community, but the people who are always affected most when you don't raise taxes are the poorest people, because they're the ones who benefit most from the public services. It's not the wealthier people who can afford it and then also can supplement what they're not receiving from public policy that really often lose out when you lower the taxes, even though they're paying more in their taxes. And I'll just leave it there.
John, anything to add before we take a straw poll?
I think you guys have had an amazing discussion and conversation with lots of valid points on a lot of sides. And this is how we end up with what we present to you. When the cabinet and Megan and I get together and have these discussions, ultimately, we have to come and present to you with a recommended budget based on all these factors. So, a lot of valid points from Christian. I think everybody would like to go to the max tax levy as a business official. That would be my recommendation. But in the same sense, you are stewards to this school district, but you're also stewards to the taxpayers as well. And so I think your discussion here this evening was very powerful.
I know I'm going to spend the next couple of days asking folks in my community, what their thoughts are too, because I think we're all making some assumptions, based on what's possible, but that's besides the point. Okay, so I think it's good to take a straw poll, just see where we are, because we do have to adopt a budget next Tuesday. So straw poll, the options, as Jim has kindly written out, are, to adopt a budget as presented, or to increase the tax levy to 4%, which would shift some things around. So let's start with increase the tax levy to 4%. Show of hands who's in favor of doing that. Adopting the budget as presented, who's in favor of that? Christian, was your hesitation because you would do more than 4%? Oh, sorry, I should have said that ahead of time, but okay.
The real reason I was lost in a thought, so I was a little late on the take, and then I didn't make sure I knew what I was voting for, and that took a second because I'm getting old.
Got it, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so as of now, it looks like the majority is to adopt the budget as presented, and we'll take it up next week again. So thank you for the thoughtful discussion. John, as always, thank you for all the content and answering all our questions.
So next week I will bring you the same presentation, unless you want to skip that. I'm not quite sure, but we can go from there.
All right, now we move on to committee reports. Anyone have committee reports to offer up? Jim, anything? Brendan, anything?
Policy is reconvening. Megan's doing all the work, and we'll meet soon.
Okay.
Communication, I'll get with the members about our next and probably final forums.
Yeah, okay.
And they probably roping the budget into one of those, since time is, obviously of the essence.
Great, thank you. Carl?
Yeah, we had a great visit with the, and Richard's going to give out the report.
No, you're good. What was it, 2 weeks ago? So 2 weeks ago, we paid a visit to our buildings and grounds team. When we went in there, they're like, oh, we've never seen you here before. So it was just cool. They were very excited that we were there. We had a very great conversation, just very loose. We expressed how grateful and thankful we are to them. Part of the discussion was the baseball field at the high school. And, they were explaining what they've been doing to try to get it ready for play. And then the following week, Carl and I, we took a visit out there to see what they've done. And I just have to say they did a really good job, and I don't think they get enough credit. You know, they're the ones that always have to deal with the problems that arise and the work orders, and I just want them to know that I think we all appreciate them. So it was great.
And I do have to say that they all the guys there were very happy with Brent, John, and Megan. They were talking, you know, they had a great thing going on with them now, so everybody's happy over there.
Lofton? Anything? No, okay. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just want to make sure I got everything covered. That's all. All right. Alrighty. So now we move on to the new business, which is our consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to allow the board to approve routine items in a single motion. Any board member may request that an item be removed for separate discussion. We have items 2 through 15. Would any board member like an item removed for discussion?
I'd like to remove 14.
14. What else? Others? Okay, hearing no further requests, item 14 will be removed. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, excluding item 14?
Motion?
Thank you, Jim. May I have a second?
Second.
Brendan, thank you. All in favor of approving the consent agenda excluding item 14?
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, item number 14. Brendan?
Yes. Thank you.
May I have a
Yeah. So moved.
motion? Thank you, Brendan. A second? Thank you, Jamie. Go ahead, Brendan.
So I have just concern with the way this is worded and the timing of it. So just to kind of catch up where we were, we had the discussion about the 2 polling places. We decided that it wasn't, as a board, it wasn't the best move for this year because of all the communication overload that was already taking place, and it was just too high of a bar to clear, especially this late in the game, and that we would, that it didn't preclude us from taking action towards establishing this for next year, which I understand this resolution is aiming to do that. My concern is there's nothing in this resolution that in the wording of it that implies this starts next year. So even though that's our intent, I am concerned that once we pass this, it will legally set the expectation that we will do this immediately. And you just game that out. We have our vote at 1 polling location, even though our policy will be on the record saying that we will have 2 in discrete voting districts. Anybody could challenge the results and say you didn't follow your own policy, and therefore, challenge the vote itself. You can make an argument that we would win that case. My argument is, why would we even expose ourselves to that when there's no pressing need to pass this now? So I think the 2 options would be to reword this, or my favorite option, pull it and just vote on this in June when there's no confusion as to which election we're talking about. Still keep it as is and just.
In board voting on it. Which has
Yes,
been our
exactly.
commitment.
This group of 8 fine people will vote on this, but in June, it makes no difference about any outcome. It achieves everything it sets out to achieve. It just avoids any confusion and potential legal liability.
Okay.
So I would, well, it's up to you, but so my recommendation is to remove it
Okay.
from.
Got it.
Yeah, got it.
Christian?
So I think my view is similar to Brendan, but for different reasons. I think that voting on this now, after having been on like the discussion for 4 or 5 months now, and the first time that it actually would not affect this year is when we actually propose a vote with the formal resolution, I think speaks for itself. I've made my comments on here, so I won't make any more on that. But the point I've made before is that this board doesn't bind next year. Next year, you're going to vote on a budget calendar. You're going to have to designate polling places. You're going to have to designate locations and all that. So it's kind of just a symbolic gesture, which is fine. We can make symbolic gestures and resolutions, but next year's board can, which might be as many as 4 different people than this year's board, will make their own decision about that. And so that's the first thing that I know that we can bind future boards when we agree to contracts, but there's a limit to that. But the point is that every board is a newly constituted body. Which that's why every June we make all these new designations. That's why we make all these new assignments, even when they're more or less reaffirming what we did the previous year. The second thing is that all we've done with this resolution is created 2 polling places. We have not created any election districts. So if that was the whole point, is that we had to create election districts, and that was the hang up, we haven't done the basic thing that we would have to do. It does not describe what the districts are. We are authorized to create the districts because of state law. This is just saying that we have the power to do that. The point is that who knows what those districts are. We said that, we specified that the polling locations will be the middle school and the high school, but you have to define boundaries for an election district, which could have been done, but hasn't been done and is not being done now. So if we want to have that discussion, I think we at least need to think about what those boundaries are, because there's almost an infinite number of ways to cut up the Cornwall Central School District with populations of 300 voters. Every regular election voting district in either New Windsor, Woodbury, or Cornwall is at least 300 voters, which means any combination of them would meet this. I think the question is, what are you going to do to create 2 relatively evenly sized districts? Because I think obviously you want the population in the 2 election districts to be the same. And I'm not sure anyone has actually gone through and done the numbers of those are, or where those lines would be. And then just in the sense of geographic proximity to the polling places, as well as the polling places being actually in the 2 separate districts. So I think that has to be discussed, and that's why I would, with Brendan, push this to a future meeting for a decision, because I think there needs to be additional things added to it at the minimum. And I also have my reservations about let next year's board make a decision on it.
Other comments? Okay, so
I'd like to make a motion to table this until our June meeting.
thank you,
In
Jim.
light of the past 2 comments.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Alrighty. We are on to second recognition of public comments. The final opportunity for the public to speak, if anyone. Would you like to say anything? You're welcome to come to the mic. Yeah, so we just asked so that people can hear it.
I'm new, so I'm just listening to everything. Okay. Hi.
Welcome.
My name is Kara Burkhart. I'm just a local mom who was here based off of UPK. So I've been trying to get a little background and information on a lot of things. So pretty much I've been kind of working a little bit behind the scenes with Cynthia, who's not here. So I've just been listening to everything budget-wise about money and allocation of funds. And I don't know if this is premature or if this is something that has already been discussed. But in terms of universal pre-K, just in general, I don't know who gets to decide the parameters or the guidelines based off of the lottery system and how it works with the locations that the children are placed in. If there is a way that we can kind of change that. Just a little background, my son has a speech delay and an IEP. So I've been kind of just figuring out ways of, trying to keep him in a school where he's been for the last, 6 months. But I wasn't sure, New York State, it's kind of new. Universal pre-K is new, especially to this area. I grew up here. My oldest son went to preschool when it was 2 days a week down in the village. We didn't have universal pre-K. This is actually my elementary school. So a lot has not really changed as much in a sense. But I'm just trying to figure out, the best things for all of my kids. I have one in this school, I have one in the high school, and then I have one that is 3. So he's my last one, so things are a little bit different with him. So I just wanted to know if there was a way or who we have to go through to kind of change the guidelines for the universal pre-K process. If there is a way to add additional seats so that no kid has to be put on a wait list for a universal pre-K. I want to know if the the teachers that are at each, universal pre-K location can be paid through the school district because I think that they deserve it. I have a lot of questions, just a lot, but, I'm not as well versed in everything, so I'm kind of just listening to everything in the background. So I don't know if this has already been discussed before or if it's just, me new here, just trying to figure out, the best way to kind of advocate for my son because I want to make sure that he gets the best opportunity and I also want to make sure that the kids after him get the same thing as well. So.
Sorry, I just was trying to clarify something. So we don't have cross dialogue, so I can't answer all your questions
okay.
right now. So
Okay.
I always feel like I need to tell new people that because it feels extremely rude to be like, thank you,
No.
and give you nothing. But we'll circle back and we will be in touch with information, and then at the next meeting we'll be able to address some of it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
If
you.
you want to leave your information with Linda, with the board secretary,
Okay.
we can have someone from the office contact you, for some of the more in the weeds questions that you have personally.
Okay.
And we can start a dialogue that way. So if you want to leave your email with Linda.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Alrighty, at this time, I would like to call a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. I will say that this is the only thing, other than that, the meeting is complete. So I don't know that anyone needs to stick around beyond that, because we'll just basically come back to close the meeting, and John, I can give you those times and, who did what. So may I please have a motion to go into executive?
Christine, just to clarify, so we don't anticipate coming out of session to take any action or vote?
No action or vote out of session, no.
Right, it's simply to discuss.
Yes. So there will be nothing else at the meeting itself. May I have a motion? Thank you, Brendan. A second? Thank you. All in favor of going to exec session?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Jamie, thank you. Second. Carl, all in favor? Aye. The meeting is adjourned at 9:24. Thank you. Thank you.